Hey everybody, welcome to another Good e-Reader comparison video. My name is Michael.
This is Peter.
Today we are going to take a look at the Blackberry Z10 versus the Q5. Q5 just came out. You can think of it as the modern day equivalent to the Blackberry Curve. You can see that the screen itself is only 3.1 inches, whereas the Z10 is only 4.2 inches. So it's a dramatic increase in size. Now, this is a pure touchscreen device. So when you're typing on it, you're using a virtual keyboard. And we'll just show you quickly on what that all means. On a random trackback on our blog. So you can see this is the QWERTY keyboard. And then you have the full keyboard here on the Q5. So keyboard's risen. It's a bit different than a keyboard than you would see on the Blackberry Q10. This is all made of plastic instead of stainless steel. So it's a bit different. You can see there's the keyboard on the Q10. So it's significantly different. People say, and I kind of agree, that I really dig the way that they have laid out the keyboard here on a Z10. I find it's fairly intuitive to like type on. And you see the numbers and everything like that. Okay, so what's the main differences between these two? Well, you're looking at the resolution on the Z10 is 1280 by 768, whereas the resolution on the Q5 is 720 by 720. This is mainly because it's a square screen. Now, the Blackberry Z10 will actually work both in landscape and portrait mode, which makes it better for watching videos, consuming media. This phone is only locked to portrait mode. It does not go to landscape mode. Blackberry actually disabled physically the ability for you to be able to switch it in orientation. So for one, it's easy for app developers because they only have to work with one orientation, but it's kind of a letdown for people that sometimes like to hold the phones in different and unconventional ways. So you will not be able to switch the Q5 into landscape mode at all. Now, the Q5 has 2 gigs of RAM, which is about the same as the Z10. The Z10 has a dual-core 1.5 gigahertz processor, whereas the Q5 only has a 1.2 gigahertz processor. You have 16 gigs of storage on the Z10, but only 8 gigs here, but you can expand the memory. You can actually expand it up to 64 gigs on the Z10, but only 32 gigs on here. You have an 8 megapixel rear-facing camera versus the 5 megapixel rear-facing camera, but they both have 2 megapixel front-facing cameras. Speaker sound quality, this has an HDMI port on it, but the Q5 doesn't. So in terms of like hardware specs, that's what we're dealing with. Let's take a look at the software experience. You can see here, these are the main default home screens on both of them. They're running what's known as Blackberry 10. Blackberry 10 is basically years of development, and it's its own unique OS. One of the cool things about it is that it actually has a built-in Android emulator, which means that you can sideload in your own Android apps. You see here we have Crackle, Netflix, Comixology, Kobo, Guardian Cross that's done by Squaresoft, and a number of other apps, including Instagram and the Good e-Reader App Store. It's fairly cool because whereas the official Blackberry World sometimes lacks in terms of quality games and content, you can make up for it by sideloading in your own apps. How do you sideload apps? Well, if you have the Z10, we have a ton of tutorials on our site, but we also have tutorials on apps.goodereader.com, and for the Q5, same thing. We have a lot of tutorials on how to sideload your own content, but if you're into just getting what's on Blackberry World, fairly easy. See the Yellow Pages business, just simply click download and you're good to go. Installs fairly quickly. You can buy both movies and music files here. I would probably say Blackberry World has grown since they first launched it when they first did the Z10. You'll notice a lot more apps, but you'll never really know whether the apps that you're downloading are native apps written exclusively for Blackberry or whether that they're Android apps converted to the Blackberry format. It's one of those things where most of the times the Android apps are a little bit slower, a little bit more sluggish than the native versions, but there's really no way to know. You see here that we have multitasking open. Any kind of apps you have open will be like this, so you could easily go from one app to another, and you could have more than 4. You have the ability to have the BlackBerry Hub. This is where your text messages, BBM updates, emails, Facebook, Twitter, and status notifications are being done. There's settings menus for you to be able to say, okay, I only want emails to appear in the hub, but I don't want my tweets, I don't want my BBM messages, like etc. Fairly cool. One of the other things is BlackBerry Balance, so you can actually keep your work separate from your personal life. So instead of having 2 phones, you only need 1. So a lot of deep options here. We're not going to show them all, but what's pretty important to know that we showed you email is the way that BlackBerry handles email. With BlackBerry 7 and prior models of BlackBerry, all emails and all data went through BlackBerry data servers, which is why if you have an older version of a BlackBerry, often you had a BlackBerry internet plan. But with these phones, you don't need that anymore. All email and everything is done through the carriers, which makes it, because these are mainly known as business devices, your data usage will increase. So things are no longer getting compressed anymore with BlackBerry. The only thing that's done through BlackBerry now is BBM, which means that everything is compressed when you're doing video chatting, whether you're doing audio chatting, everything is done through their own server, so you'll actually save money on data by doing it through here. BBM is the only program right now that does that. So if you're wondering why you got a new BlackBerry device but there's not a BlackBerry internet service plan anymore, now you know, and knowing's half the battle. Let's take a look at some of the apps here. We're going to focus more on the reading experience because, hey, we're a good e-reader and this is what we do.
This is the Kindle app, and like we mentioned, you can't get it from Blackberry World on the Q5. You can only get it from the Blackberry World on the Z10. You can swipe down from the top to reveal the bar. You can pin the bar to keep it there the entire time. We'll keep it here for now because we have some options to show you. You can change the text. It's going to be the same on both of these because they are running the same app. Change the themes. Change the brightness. And they both do long presses with notes and highlights. So we'll do a note on this so we can see the keyboard. And we'll do a highlight on here. And you can both make bookmarks. And then we can hide the bars. So pretty simple, but you definitely see that you're faced with half the height of the screen on the Q5. So not the most ideal for reading books, but if you had to, you can.
Yeah, I mean, this is the main difference right here, where you have more of screen size, but a virtual keyboard, whereas you have less screen size via a full QWERTY keyboard. There's the type of people that have only ever had Blackberries with physical keyboards. So moving to a phone with a virtual keyboard sometimes takes a lot of work. I grew up, to be honest, with I've had every BlackBerry model since the Pearl, and I've always just had the physical keyboard models. So jumping from that to say like an iPhone or even to the Z10 with a virtual keyboard, it takes a lot of getting used to. And I know a lot of people that are very loyal to BlackBerry just because of the physical keyboard. So like always, you'll sacrifice screen real estate because of a physical keyboard, but you'll have more when you're dealing with just a pure touchscreen environment. Let's take a look at how both of these phones handle comic books.
So we have Street Fighter comic, and you can really tell how square the screen is on the Q5 because you have these huge borders with a rectangular image in between. So it gives you a good idea to show you that.
But this is full screen, which is cool.
Whether you were able to change the orientation on the Q5 at all wouldn't really matter because it's almost 1-to-1 aspect ratio, meaning it's as wide as it is tall. So as we've noticed, if you watch our other videos, the Q5 versus the Q10, you'll notice that the Q10 is actually sporting a Super AMOLED display. So it's an LED display rather than the LCD displays on these guys. So you will actually see a lot differences in colors and quality on the Q10, whereas these are pretty much the same screen technologies minus the size. So
this picture right here sort of shows it all. Full screen, But if you do zoom, you can kind of get away with that, get away with like having a little bit bigger images.
Right. So they both handle it fairly well for something that is a side-loaded app, because you can't get Comixology on the Blackberry World. We had to side-load this in, but they both work very smoothly.
Okay, so how exactly do these two phones stack up to each other with audio and video? Well, we're going to check out Netflix and see for ourselves.
Sorry, new trick. Didn't quite work. Idea! I'll make you an outfit for the Gala 2 Rainbow Dash. Outfit for the what now? I'll make one for you and all of you. Oh, and of course Pinky and Fluttershy too. Oh, and when I'm done, we can hold our very own fashion show. What a great idea. If you're sure you can handle it. Oh, it'll be a little bit of work.
We chose this because it's got a lot of color, a lot of movement, and a lot of energy to it. Basically, we tested the audio quality on both, and they're pretty much identical. They're not very loud. They're not any specific model of onboard sound like Beats or anything like that. So it's pretty standard. And you'll notice that this is in landscape because it actually is only available in landscape, whereas the Q10, the Q5, sorry, having no really specific orientation, it just kind of, it's in square mode. But yeah, the video quality is pretty much all right on both, and for it being a side-loaded app, Netflix, it works quite well.
Yeah. These are two very different phones. The hardware subtly different. The screen size is being probably the most noticeable difference. In the end, it depends on the price. This is still fairly expensive, but it has dramatically come down in price as new models have started to come out. When new models always come out, the older phones always come down in price.
Right.
This is more of an economical phone. You're paying roughly about $200 to $300 in most markets. Because of the plastic design, BlackBerry is primarily aiming this model at emerging countries. So you'll see Indonesia, a lot of places in South America, Portugal, Malaysia, the Philippines. This is where this model becomes a lot more viable because of the price. When we reviewed the Q10 is still like $800–900, and that's a fairly hefty investment where you can pretty well get the same experience for dramatically less. These two phones pretty well have a lot in common, but they're very different at the same time. You saw a lot of the real world tests that we ran with both like email, with Netflix, with reading ebooks, comic books. That's very indicative to the overall experience. With gaming, with watching videos, looking at pictures, nothing really changes. You heard our thoughts and you've seen a lot of our real world tests. What are your thoughts? Do you prefer the Z10 or the Q5? Let us know what you think and the reasons why. If you have any ideas on future videos, drop a comment in this YouTube box and we'll do our best to accommodate you guys. For GoodEReader.com and a review of the Blackberry Z10 and Q5 comparison, my name is Michael.
This is Peter.
Everybody take care.